All righty. Thank you all for being here today. We're so excited to have the Peninsula School District with us. Look how many of their leaders have shown up today. I'm just so thankful that you folks come to these meetings. And Krestin, you're such a trooper. You always come, and you've been such a great participant in coming to our events, and really appreciate it. You know, Krestin has been the superintendent for Peninsula Schools since 2013, but she has a long storied career in education, 34 years. She started off as a classroom teacher, became a principal, worked her way up to director of middle schools and the Mount Tahoma Regional Director for Tacoma Public Schools. She has been married for 36 years to her husband, Byron. They have 3 grown children and 4 grandchildren, and she loves horses.
Because we have a team. All right. Thank you so much for coming. It's so great to see faces here. I would love my team to come on up. Look at all of them. Come on up, all the way up. Yeah. So Kirk, I have to say, I think that I have to update my bio because I'm older and I've been married longer. I know, but we'll keep it that way. We'll just keep it that way. All right. So we are here to talk about back to school and school in Peninsula School District this year, what is in store, what has been done a little bit. And I thought what better way to do that than to bring my team, the team of people that make the magic happen for kids. But I also want to let you know that last night we had our welcome back meet the teacher for all 10 of our elementary schools and also Kopachuk Middle School. And tonight is Harbor Ridge, is my understanding. Yesterday was also KPMS during the day. Students came in to get their schedules. And I have to say, because John Helwick and I split the elementaries, we each did 5 in a short amount of time. So we were driving. It's a good thing our chief of police isn't here. And I'm not going to say what my car looks like, but we were driving around and greeting and meeting families, and they are so excited. I think parents are even more excited than students, but I have to see, the little kindergartners coming in and seeing all of their teachers and their staff, the principals. We had food service there. We had our bus drivers were there last night. And so we are ready to go, and we are ready to open our doors on the 5th, which is Tuesday. School starts for PSD. So without further ado, I would like to have each of my team introduce and let you know what they supervise and what they are over.
My name's John Helwick. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Elementary Schools and Grants.
Good morning. I'm Lisa Ray. I am the Executive Director of Student Services, which is all of our federal and state programs and our special education programs as well.
Hi, I'm Chris Hagel. I'm the Executive Director of Digital Learning. I oversee everything technology, communications, and safety and security.
Good morning. I'm Dan Gregory. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Secondary Education Programs and all that is encompassed within that.
Good morning. I'm John Yellowlees, Chief Academic Officer, and I oversee our Teaching and Learning Department.
All right. So who has the clicker? Is that you? Okay. I feel like I'm standing right in the middle. Where should I stand here? Right here? Okay. All right. So we have a 1-pager for all of you, our strategic plan. We worked very hard. Thank you, community, for giving us input. Many of you attended our community forum to come up with our strategic plan. Last year was our first year of our strategic plan and remains our strategic plan. And we really serve the community and try to live this in action, word, and deed every day to inspire and empower every child every day. That is our commitment to the community, and that is our commitment to each and every child. Go ahead, Chris. And our mission remains to be the best school district in the state by preparing every child to be successful and engaged in global citizenry. And that means that we must provide innovative and rigorous programs within a culture of belonging. And you will hear some information about belonging. How do we actually quantify that? We actually have assessments that ask students how they feel connected to schools, and what our next action is to find out what would make more of them be more active and feel like they belong. So that is our work. Go ahead, Chris. And we have our 5 values here: excellence, of course, academically and connected to schools; curiosity, which is an unusual thing and remains unusual to be in a strategic plan, but is a commitment from our board. Thank you, Chuck West, for being here, board member. Curiosity, we demand of our schools and our programs that every child is encouraged to wonder, explore, and create every day. Those are the things that's the magic of childhood. We want to see that in our programs and in our schools. It's okay to play and laugh and have fun. We say that with our staff. We try to act that way as leaders, and we want to see and encourage that in children. Confidence, we want them to be courageous and take chances. Our culture, we want our students to feel like they belong, to feel like they matter, to feel seen, and have every opportunity to succeed. And character, which is something that is really important and is really hard to measure, right? How do we measure hardworking, respectful, honest, and kind? And you will hear that in our presentation today, but you will also see that in classrooms. Okay, go ahead. We have 5 goals, and we remain having our 5 goals: academic excellence, innovation, our learning environment, fiscal responsibility, and community engagement. All right, so go ahead. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about capital projects around fiscal responsibility. Last year, Peninsula School District, we reached the funding cliff. If you've heard educational funding cliff, we had ESSER dollars during COVID, and we were a school district that did not have much supplemental dollars. And so we reached our funding cliff last year. We needed to look very, very carefully at our staffing model. School districts are funded through the state in a prototypical formula that was developed by legislators many, many years ago. And that's how we are staffed. So it's so many students equals so many teachers, school psychologists, administrators, so on and so forth. And so we looked very carefully. We had to reduce $12 million last year. And we have done that with attrition and working closely hand in hand with our unions. And so we are right-sized. So if you hear out in the public that many school districts are facing funding cliffs and they will have to lay off, you will hear that throughout this year, because many school districts that were more heavily funded with federal dollars will be facing that. We are not in that situation now. We are right-sized, and that is directly around our fiscal responsibility. Okay, so I want to just make that very clear. That is not Peninsula School District. We are ahead of the curve. We did very difficult work last year, and we are ready to rock and roll within a more reasonable, manageable, aligned to our prototypical school model. So what's going on? Capital projects. We could have had a long thing to talk about this, but what I ask you is, when you're out and about, and especially our online viewers, go out and about, you will see things visually. So Kopachuk Middle School, in fact, yesterday afternoon, the sod was being laid right before we had open house, which was amazing. And it's so green, Chuck. Wow. It is perfect weather, and there's sprinklers. So Kopachuk Middle School, we say that it was a remodel, but if you go to it, you need to go and see and let us know. It looks completely new. It is completely new. So it is ready to open on Tuesday. Key Peninsula Middle School, it will be absolutely 100% ready by Tuesday. We have some work that's happening right now. We want to thank Peninsula Light, PenMet Light. They have been out. We want to thank all of the people that are making it happen. We have extra crews that are cleaning daily, and water is a big thing, right? Water and sewer. The two things that are so amazing, but it looks beautiful, and families were there yesterday and they were very excited. Swiftwater Elementary, we have some outdoor field areas. There was some bogging going down and some kids were not getting lost in the mud, but almost. And so Swiftwater is in the very final moments of their, but there are 72, I believe, new spots for bike racks. If you had been by there, if you had gone to Costco and you were driving by Swiftwater, you would see there was usually a sea of bikes all over the lawn. And we want to encourage bike riding. And so you will see that. Discovery Elementary, they have doors, internal doors. First time ever. And I have to tell you, yay, I know. John and I were both there when the doors opened up, the outside doors, to see the inside doors. And the kids were amazing. They're like, there's doors here. So I encourage and I thank the public for supporting that. And I really want to thank the city of Gig Harbor and all of the permitting process and all of the contractors. You know, supply chain is a real thing. So we do have one door that is still on order, and but that's it. And they're all ready, and they have glass in them. So we think that it's going to be very quiet. The teachers are like, we're used to hearing our neighbors speak. And so it will be amazing. Families are very excited. Voyager, we have some external, if you drive by there, you can see there's some, I don't know what it's called when you wrap it, but there's new siding going on there. Harbor Heights, and this happened in the middle of the spring, but I do want to highlight this. We paved their path. We don't call it a trail, Kirk, you know, and so that our wheelchairs can get out there. We have our options class out there, and so students have access to the pathway. We have more in store, and we'll be working with that school about some ideas about inclusive playground opportunities and increasing that. Henderson Bay got a washer dryer. Doesn't sound like a big deal, but it was a big deal for the families and the kids. So they are excited about that. And just so that you note, I was just watching the news last night. There's a lot of discussion about how expensive school supplies are and how many families are, you know, if they have 4 or 5 kids, how expensive that can get. And so we have purchased school supplies for every child. So yesterday, the parents were taking their little box home full of school supplies. And that is TK all the way up to, I think it's TK, preschool all the way up to 12th grade. And so they're just basic supplies, but it's something that families can know that their child will have high quality. So this is really kind of the first year that we've, is it the first year? Second year? First year that we've done that. And we're happy to do that. I don't know that answer.
They do it for an online program.
Okay. See, there's so many things I don't know, and there's so many things I do know. All right. Okay. I'm going to turn it over to elementary.
Oh, wonderful. So last year we had the really cool opportunity to take one of our existing early learning programs and kind of revamp it a little bit and turn it on its head and offer an outdoor learning opportunity for both Voyager and Evergreen. And it is a really cool way to start kids off on meeting those goals. When Krestin talks about curiosity and wonder, that happens outside all day long. And so we are looking forward to thinking about how we expand that learning. We had a great class of kids who got to spend a lot of time outside last year. and then they go into a traditional classroom. And so how will they handle that kind of internal, what am I going to do inside all day? So we're looking at how we keep thinking about outdoor education and bringing that those opportunities to students. One of the other things I'm really excited about is that we have a commitment to starting strong and making sure that we're expanding our early learning opportunities as much as possible. Based on our size and the number of classrooms we have available, we want to take advantage of that as much as possible. Transitional kindergarten. So it's the program that's right before they go into kindergarten, not traditional preschool, not traditional kindergarten, but right smack dab in the middle.
Not a stupid.
No. And we really focus on students who haven't had access to preschool in other ways. So it is a wonderful program. We're looking forward to expanding that. Going into kindergarten the following year, so 4 to 5. The other thing we did last year, and many of you were at a meeting that we talked about kicking this off of Peninsula Reads. Did anyone go into a classroom and read in a classroom last year at all? Check. Great. Awesome. So we had started a program where we did Peninsula Reads, and we invited the community to come in and read to children. Children always need to be read to. We don't have enough adults in the building ever to meet that need. And so we are going to extend that this year and expand it to writing. We have a goal of 100% of our third graders reading on grade level. And we have been focused on really rethinking our instruction at that K-3 level, and then also providing as many opportunities for children to fall in love with reading and have an opportunity to be make a connection with an adult and read with them. I'm going to let John talk about the other parts of that.
Sure. So one of the things we appreciated that the board did is recognize the whole child, and recognize that the research shows about art and the impact that that can have on kids, not just to develop their whole child, but also can be a way of enhancing their understanding of core concepts. An example is, so we have 3 schools that sought and received grants to help them bring in some kind of coaches to help them infuse more art into their school on a daily basis in the classroom, not just like, okay, we're going to set aside time, we're going to do an art project, but to get it into all of their activities. So an example is, I was in a very skilled first grade teacher at Purdy's classroom, and she was teaching subtraction to the little first graders. And she had the kids kind of come in the middle and kind of form an intertwined shape among 5 kids. And then someone would go and they would tap somebody and they would pull them out of the 5. And then the class would see that you were subtracting 1 from the 5. So they were using their kind of physical skills and kind of almost like a dance type of activity to learn math. So those are the types of opportunities that are there. And we're going to try and enhance that even more this year. And we believe that there's a lot of potential there. We also have a big focus on STEM in every school. We had one of our schools, Pioneer, which is a STEAM magnet school, received the Department of Education Green Ribbon Award, and principal was able to go back to Washington, D.C. and receive that award. And it was from all the STEAM activities they have, plus the efforts they've made to be green. They have a greenhouse. They have a lot of things that they're working on their grounds to be more sustainable school. And that's an effort that we're moving for all of our schools. Another activity that kind of goes along with that is that school's also had at the end of the year, every year, kind of an invention contest where kids come up with inventions, they bring in the community to judge them. And we're going to try and take that concept, which has been really popular there, and do that at every school. And there's a national program called Invention Convention that we're going to borrow some of their curriculum to do that. So again, it's trying getting that excitement in the community around it's creativity, it's project-based, it's a way of really getting kids to do some deep thinking and teamwork around some inventions. Sorry. We have this problem in education. Probably a lot of different professions have acronym issues. Yeah, it's science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And sometimes we talk about STEAM, and that inserts art into that also. Any other questions about that? Okay, and one other, oh yeah, sorry. Music, sorry, I should have yeah, it's music, dance, and visual arts are the 3 big areas. Purdy Elementary, Minter Creek Elementary, and Discovery. But we're hoping that some others will come along as well. Yeah. Okay, and one other one for Lisa to talk.
We probably should have had our bullets in the right order. One of the great things that Krestin has shared with us, and there's some work being done in Thurston County around the Day of Champions, and it's kind of connected to the Special Olympics, and it's really targeting and supporting our students with disabilities and letting them have an opportunity to participate in like a Special Olympics type event. And it's a one big day, and we're looking forward to kicking that off this year. We talked about finding ways to build that out and build that access and getting some sponsors and finding ways to get children to that activity. So we'll be building that out this year and looking for lots of partners and exciting work there. Yes.
Very explicit about the partners we need. Oh. I just want to be explicit about the partnership. It's not like asking for lots and lots. It's asking for lunch for all the participants. That would be students and staff and anyone involved, volunteers. So it's lunch. Am I too far? Oh, okay. Lunch and t-shirts, different colored t-shirts. So, you know, all the students would be in one color. And so pretty simple sponsorship and very, very visible. So it will be the start of, well, we're going to start with Peninsula schools, but we know that I do not know this, but I don't think that there's anything like this in the whole Kitsap area. So we will be inviting any of our friends on this side of the bridge later, but we're going to do the first one first and make all the mistakes.
I think we'll turn it over to Dan in secondary.
Oh, I am next. Good morning, and thank you again for having us. I just have to follow up real quickly on Krestin's slide when she talked about Kopachuk. I headed over there about midway through the open house for parents and kids. And as I was walking in, because I had to park a ways away, a minivan coming my way slows down. And, you know, this time of year, I kind of went, oh gosh, what do I have to deal with now? But it was a parent that I knew that had children who were older that had gone through Kopachuk previously and then had returned with a younger child. And she just stopped and she said, Dan, nice job. This place looks great. So just that little anecdotal piece for those of us that have had kids that went through the old Kopachuk, it is just beautiful to see that new building. And that was a nice comment to have on the way in. And she really took notice of both the outside and the inside of that building. Secondary programs. I wanted to start with graduation rates. Last year's graduation rate was the highest we've had in about 10 years. We were at 90.9% across the district, and contributing to that, Gig Harbor High School was at 94.3%. Peninsula High School was right at 93%, and Henderson Bay High School was at 83.7%, which is very high as well, because as you know, Henderson Bay serves our students who needed a different environment. And sometimes when they come to Henderson Bay, they're already credit deficient, and we work really hard on catching them up to get them to graduate on time. But that was really a celebration. That information came in just within the last 3 or 4 days. And again, that 10-year high is something to celebrate. It's not where we want to be at the very end, because we have a goal of 100% graduation rate. But that was very impressive, and it was something we were excited about. Contributing to that, over the last several years, our high schools have really been focusing on those incoming freshmen. And we measure what's called 9th grade on time to graduate. And they have to earn 6 credits. You may have heard of Core 24 that the state came out with a number of years ago. I know Larry's been around, was a part of that. And so they have to earn 6 credits a year to stay on time for Core 24. So we really intentionally and intently focus on those 9th graders when they come in, so that we try to keep them from digging a hole that they have to dig out of. And so that's a big contributing factor to that successful graduation rate. And so we're excited to continue that work as well. A number of years ago, we started college in the high school, and we started that somewhat slowly at Gig Harbor High School with a partnership with University of Washington. We have expanded that to Peninsula High School, and Peninsula High School has partnered primarily with Central Washington University and some with the University of Washington. And the college in the high school program is where students can take college classes and earn college credit while still in the high school. Previously, they had to pay tuition for those, and it was at a much reduced rate. This past year, the legislature passed legislation where those credits will now be covered. So not unlike Running Start, where they go to a community college and it's paid for by the state. Now, when they take those college and the high school classes, while they're sitting in our classrooms with our teachers, they can earn that college credit. So that's just a huge benefit to our students, not only on the financial side, but we've expanded the offerings as well. So we have additional math classes. Our pre-calculus classes now not only earn high school credit, but students may sign up for and earn college credit at Gig Harbor through UW and at Peninsula through Central Washington University. So we'll have students leaving the high school with a number of college credits in their pocket already, which is really a cool thing and much less expensive than what they would pay for them when they go to the universities. John. Those credits can be transferred just about anywhere. Because they're transcripted on a UW or CWU transcript, yes, they are accepted. And I won't spend too long on this, but you've probably heard of advanced placement and AP courses. AP classes, whether or not students get credit in those when they go to college depends upon what they do on one day in May when they take a test. So they could work the whole year, they could have a bad day when they test, and that may not count. And those vary based on what the colleges accept based on the AP scores. College and the high school, they will walk out with a transcripted credit, which is much more universally accepted. At the middle schools, we did some really focused work last year with our middle schools on career and tech ed. We had lacked some consistency across the district, and we wanted to build continuity as well so that programs that students took in career and tech ed in middle school carried forward to the high school. And so we brought on some new programs, new classes at the middle level. That is design and modeling. That's kind of a computer-aided design. It's a modified computer-aided design class. It does go back to some of that discussion we had earlier about creativity and just teaching students the skills in these areas and turning them loose on that. Also, a new course on energy and the environment, and another new course at the middle school on flight and space. At the high schools, we've added drone certification courses. And so this is kind of a cool course to lead into that with the flight and space as well. And then finally in athletics, that's a big part of what we do at secondary schools. I didn't put it up there, but I also want to give a nod to the arts. If you've ever been to any of our concerts or drama performances, both of our comprehensive high schools do a fabulous job on that, and we'll continue to try to build those. Athletic wise, we had a very successful year last year. The South Sound Conference that we're in, which includes some Kitsap schools, some Thurston County schools, including Yelm. They give an all sports award every year, and Gig Harbor High School and Peninsula High School have been in the top 2 of those every year for the past, I think, 6 or 8 years since the South Sound Conference has been around. So we continue to excel there. Additionally, the Peninsula High School girls fast pitch team were state champions last year. So that's a really cool thing. We are in a reclassification year. This is where the WIA, the Washington Interscholastic Athletics and Activities Association, they look at the enrollments of all the schools across the state and they reshuffle who's going to be 4A, 3A, 2A, 1A, and so on. Whenever that happens, it becomes kind of a shuffle around who's going to be in your league and conference. And so I'll just share with you, becomes very political, and there's a lot of jockeying between districts and schools and who's going to end up in whose league. So that's going to take place this year, and sometime late winter or early spring, we'll figure out what it looks like going forward. So more to come on that. We have input on that through our athletic directors and sometimes through principals. And so they check in with myself and I kind of consult with Krestin and we say, hey, where do we really want to land? So we have some input on it. Some of it's within our control. Some of it may not be, but we do rely on our athletic directors to go out there and do their job and put out the good word and advocate for us. And we've got 2 very good athletic directors that do that work. All right. Thank you. Chris, I think you're next. John's next.
Thank you, Dan, and good morning. And again, thank you for having us this morning. So I'm going to talk about our academic focus today. And This could be multiple slides under teaching and learning, but I've tried to focus in on just 3 things. And there's a lot of overlap in terms of what Dan and John and Lisa have already talked about. But we're going to continue our focus this year and really trying to build systems and structures to enable all students to be successful within our school district. I've tried not to use too many acronyms here and define them if we are using acronyms. So one of the big initiatives that we have in the district is multi-tiered systems of support. And all that really is we're collecting data on students on an ongoing basis. And as we collect that data, we're determining, have they met the standard? Are they being successful? And if students are not being successful, and then and part of that is all students have access to a viable and guaranteed core tier 1 curriculum. So that's the first thing that's in place as we collect data and ensure that students are being successful and meeting grade level standards. If they're not, what we do is provide tier 2 and tier 3 support. So that's just something more, something additional, potentially something different for students who haven't met standards. And if students are meeting standards, we look to provide additional enrichment and extension opportunities so they can extend their learning. And that's a multi-tiered system of support for academics. And we also provide that support for behavior and social emotional learning also. Universally designed learning is another initiative that we've been working on. And that's basically instructional strategies that we're providing professional learning on, and actually working with we're fortunate to work with the national consultant, Dr. Katie Novak. She's been working with us for about 2 years, and this is really around instructional strategies, and Superintendent Bahr spoke about belonging and all students being included and feeling like they belong. So this is one way, again, in which we're providing teachers professional learning so that they can provide students a variety of ways to access their learning and feel like they're included. So it's multiple means of accessing grade level content, multiple ways of demonstrating that they've mastered that learning, and multiple ways of belonging in the classroom environment. So those are the 2 big initiatives that we continue to work on. We've been working on for a couple of years, and we're continuing to focus on implementation this school year. Finally, I'll mention our work on literacy, which is part of our multi-tiered systems of support. Again, these focus really are that academic excellence goal, as well as the learning environment goal that we have in our strategic plan and closely aligned with our strategic plan work. So when it comes to literacy, we do have a goal of 100% of our students, our 3rd grade students, reading at grade level over the course of our strategic plan. So by 2026, we want all of our students who are assessed in 3rd grade to be a benchmark, which means reading at grade level. There's a lot of research that suggests that if we meet that goal and students leave 3rd grade reading at grade level, they're very successful across all content areas, closely correlated with success in school and success in life and graduation rates like Dan Gregory was talking about. So I'm going to ask, that's a K through 12 focus, but I'm going to ask Lisa to share a little bit more. She's been instrumental in the work at the elementary level and leading that work. And she's going to talk about and share a little bit about what the work looks like K through 3 and at the elementary schools.
So like John said, one of the most important things we can do is ensure that every student is a reader. When the 3rd grade is a really pivotal year because they stop learning to read, but then they read to learn. And so all of that content comes through learning. Much of our work around universal design is to have kids have other ways to access if they struggle to read, but we really need to make sure that everyone's a reader. And so we have been really invested in investigating what those practices are and what we're doing in the classroom to make sure that they are reading by 3rd grade and that every student gets what they need and then they become a reader. Some of those things have been talking with teachers about their instructional practices, looking at the tools and resources we're using, meeting with families. Last year, Krestin started what we call the literacy task force, and really looking at what are best practices, what are people doing around the state and even across the nation that is getting results. And so we've come up with some guiding principles, and we're really leaning into how do we help our teachers know how to teach reading the best that they can. This is just a little side note. We have a really cool professional learning model that we're taking our teachers through. We had 80 slots allowed this year just because of the way that it's structured. And we, within a week, had 80 people signed up. And then some, we have a waiting list. And so teachers are craving this. They're really interested in the research and the science behind reading and learning to read. And that's what we're spending our time and energy talking with families about what they are seeing at home. How can they help their children at home? How can we communicate better back and forth about what that looks like in our classroom? So it's a big effort. It is not easy to turn a ship. It's like changing a cruise ship, not a little boat. And so we have to take little steps and keep pushing on the same effort over and over to get the progress that we're looking for. I think it's Chris's turn finally. Oh, yes. Mm-hmm. So the debate is really around balanced literacy or structured literacy and science of reading. And we are leaning towards getting our teachers to understand the science of reading. It has been, there's the pendulum in education and it swings. And we have had teachers that have gone through teacher training and new staff that have never heard about the science of reading. And so in the past few years, we've been really leaning into helping people understand that and what has to happen in a classroom to help activate the brain in order to make sure that those skills are developed so that they can read efficiently and fluently is the word. So that's the research we've been doing. We have some instructional strategies that we've been implementing, and really the best teacher with the right instructional strategies can make that happen. And so that's why we're investing in teacher leadership and teacher professional learning, so they know what to do. And then we will say, do we have the right tools? That's our next question, but we really need to know that everybody feels really has a really good solid understanding of the science before we start investing in new groups. Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Sure. Right. There are some really great graphics that show what happens in the brain and the parts of what you need to know. Basically, when you're learning to read, you need to be able to know what a sound is, break it apart, or put it together to make a word. And that word has meaning. And then, do that over and over again. That's simplified. But there are some really amazing graphics that we can share with the community and put on our website. And teachers are getting better at communicating all of those structures as well, so that they have all the tools to communicate with families. But it does get kind of swirled up in the politics too, but really the research has been around since 2000 around reading instruction and what needs to happen. And so it's hard to argue with research that's been around that long, and we keep continuing to learn more and more about the brain and how that works and what happens when a child is looking at a letter and making some connections to the sound. Yeah.
Your question is the right question to ask, because I'm a scientist. I'm a biologist from PLU undergrad. And so when we have been having really fierce conversations about how to move that needle and what we are seeing in the classroom, it can't be about politics and it can't be about curriculum, right? It can't be about, we're going to select this one or we're going to select this one. We really are committed to this community to really dive down deep and figure this out together, because each child is different. When we look at every student, so for myself, I know that I picked up reading really, really young, but it was in my home. And for whatever reason, I just learned how to read in chunks. And so that has been my conversation with Lisa, like, how do people learn how to read, and why are there gaps? We are committed to this. I personally am also committed, both as a nana, as a grandma, and as the superintendent here. So I have asked to be on the statewide convening With OSPI as the superintendent, I have asked, I'm hoping that they will say yes. I believe that they will, but we need to figure this out as a state. We have not. If you look online and you look at OSPI and if there's any kind of like recommended, that does not exist. And so we want to be above the politics and we want to really be centered on children and families. What I will say is that my passion has always been about brain, how the brain works. How does it translate? Like I used to teach axons, right? And action potential and dendrites and all of that. And so that is very exciting for us to really think about, how do little children learn? How do they learn? They learn so quickly and they learn multiple languages. How does that all work, right? Those of us that are older, if I had to learn, Japanese or what, it's more of a struggle, but little children learn it very quickly. So using that aptitude and using brain research, we are committed to figuring this out. So, and we want to make it super simple for moms and dads, right? With their young children, because we know that the research is really clear that if adults read to kids very young and point out words and use their intonation, like, have the voices and all of that, especially for grandparents or aunts, uncles. But that's why we initiated Peninsula Reads, because we want the community's input as well. We want to open the door and say, come on in. Some of you have excellent voices if you're doing like the Three Bears. We know that. And so, and children gravitate towards that. And they may learn from one person better than another person. And we don't know the reason why, but that is a reality.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, I'll turn it over to Chris and he can finish this
Okay.
up.
I will wrap it up really quick. So, I think the last time I was in front of all of you, we were talking about the levy and the new safety, security, and technology levy that we were asking. And thankfully to the voters, they supported us through that. And, we understood that safety is a priority in our classrooms, and the community had told us through our strategic planning process, through the levy process, you need to do more around safety. Now, we don't get that money yet. It comes in April. That's the way the funding cycles work. But one of the things we did do this summer is we hired armed school safety officers at our 2 high schools. Our ability to get SROs through the county and through the city has been kind of a struggle due to funding in both of those arenas. They both can't hire enough officers just to fill their own spots, let alone help us with SROs. So we went out and we hired 2 former law enforcement officers, one from Redmond PD and one from Travis County Sheriff's Department in Austin, Texas. They will be our 2 new armed school safety officers at the high schools. We're working through certification and all of that right now. But they're on board. They're coming in. We ran through a panel this summer with parents, students, teachers, and administrators. All of the candidates had to go through 4 panels. When I think Dan and I were there going in, talking to the kids after it was all over, they were fighting over which one gets to have Moose. Moose is a big man that's going to be at Gig Harbor High School this year. And so the 2 high schools were fighting, trying to decide who gets to have Moose as their school safety officer. So the kids were an awesome part of this process. And so were the parents. So we're really excited to have them on board. If you've not been paying attention to the news in the last 6 months, artificial intelligence is taking over in every facet of the world around us right now. We knew it was going to be a big thing that's going to hit education. And so we started last January working with some of our teachers, and we spent all of last spring talking about what is this going to look like in the classroom? What does writing look like these days? How is this going to impact us? And so we've had a big focus on that. We're going to have an even bigger focus this coming year. Focus on Education Day is November 23rd. Is that correct, Krestin? And we will be at Kopachuk and KPMS, inviting the community in. And we're going to have beyond just seeing the beautiful new buildings, we're also going to be having demonstrations and teachers showing and students showing what they're doing around artificial intelligence. So we would encourage you to take part in that. Another thing we're implementing this year is a lot of times when we're trying to reach out to the community and tell them about the things that are happening in the district, we have a really good method to get in touch with parents. We don't always have a really good method to get in touch with people who aren't actually tied to the school. And so we're starting to open up some new subscription community newsletters where you can go in and subscribe, and we will target you, we'll send you newsletters, things that are happening. Krestin's newsletters monthly will be out. I'm going to talk to Dan a little later in the next week, talk about athletics and doing some athletic newsletters as well, and get those, because that's, those are things that people are interested in the community, things that we can put out and share with you where you don't, really our only communication method with the entire community is either through the press or through social media. And if you're not following social media, or you don't read Gig Harbor Now or the Gateway, you don't know what's going on in the school. So we're going to try and do that as another outreach method this coming year. We have made, as we work through our strategic plan and we think about our vision for the future, we've realized that our logo, our brand is kind of getting old. It's been around 25 years or more. And so we're going to open up a competition with our students, with our parents, with our staff, and with the community to try and come up and co-develop a new logo for the school district this year. And so we're going to have more stuff coming out in October on that, but we would love to have community involvement in that process. We're going to do a big competition, and then we'll turn that into, what going into next school year, what our new brand and logo looks like for the school district. And so, and then we're still doing a ton of cybersecurity improvements in the district. Unfortunately for us, school districts are still the #1 target in the country of cyber attacks. And so that's a constant battle that we're fighting behind the scenes, and nobody ever sees it, but I want to make sure that people are aware of it. It's, it's getting big press now federally as well. So we're hoping to see more federal funding, but it is another big impact we have in the school district right now.
Chris, will you talk about 2 additional things?
Sure.
Badges
Yes.
and then lockable, what's it called when you can't go right into the building?
The vestibule.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so you may have seen Gig Harbor Now ran a story a couple days ago. All of our buses a couple years ago were equipped with RFID readers. And this year we're going to finally be able to implement, students are going to get a badge when they go to school, and then they take that badge home and back with them. But when they get on the school bus, they swipe their badge. And then when they get off the school bus, they swipe it again. And parents have an app now where they can check and see where their bus is. They'll see it on a map. They'll be able to see where their student got on the bus, where their student got off the bus. If your student decided that they were going to Johnny's house instead of coming home, the parents will be able to see that they got off at Johnny's bus stop instead of their own. So that will be starting first day of school with Swiftwater Elementary. We chose Swiftwater because they only have 2 buses, because all the kids ride bicycles. So it was the smallest group of kids that we could choose. So we're starting with Swiftwater, and then we're going to be rolling out about every 3 weeks with every other school throughout the year. So students will have their own badges, and that'll be great for parents. Parents are loving it so far. They can, even if they don't have the badge, they can see where their buses are. So they can just use the app on their phone, see when the bus is coming, when it's going to be, if it's going to be a couple minutes late or a couple minutes early. And so that's a nice new one. And then secure vestibules. We have secure door locking systems now at all 17 schools. We implemented it at Gig Harbor and Peninsula last year. Secure vestibules in all but 3 of our schools, where parents can come in, or they buzz in and then go into a secure area, and then they can get buzzed into the office so that they don't have direct access into the schools. So we're really excited about those, and looking at some of the buildings that are older with some of our safety and security money to add those as well. So yeah. And I think that's it. John?
Okay, well, thank you very much for your presentation. I know we had a few questions along the way. Are there any additional questions? Okay, let's start with Larry and then.
I appreciate, the need to be maximally secure with the locks and I personally hate the idea of armed security officers. I understand we might probably have to do that, but at the same time, the price we're paying is to isolate the school and the student from the community. And are there any ways in which, even in this environment, we can somehow add the community, or put the community at the school back in the community? There needs to be, those community rooms. The community needs to be engaged, in my view, with the schools. And if you can't get across the moat, you know, you simply isolating the whole education system. So I understand we've got to do that. But is there
Sure.
any thinking about how we get the community reconnected with the schools?
I would say yes, and. So that's the paradox. Both things can be true. If we had all of our kindergarten moms up here and dads, what they would say is they would say, we want things to be safe, right? So the reality is that we must do both. So our community rooms are open to the community. And what we have said, Peninsula Reads and volunteers, we are open to the public. The only difference is, so like if I don't have my tag on, but my tag opens every school. I just walk up, I click it, it goes in. It's just one more thing. So if you haven't had the opportunity to do that, our new schools are wide open. People can see everyone, right? And it's just, hey, I'm here to see my granddaughter. I'm gonna, and then you're buzzed in. So there is not, there's not barbed wire or any of those kinds of things. And both things need to be true at this time. And I would say our high schools really are not built for today's world, right? They're like a labyrinth. And there's I don't know how many doors are there, a lot of doors, 40 plus doors, and students need to go in and out, especially if think of PHS, to go to classes. So we aren't there yet with design, but both things. And I appreciate that because I'm all about community and having community in. And the conversation, even like about discovery doors, you really have to listen to parents. I never raised my children at a time like now. Like when I was raising my children and they're in their late 30s, I didn't think about the things that young parents think about now. And so both are true. That is the paradox. And that is our responsibility to figure out both together with communities. So what I would ask is if communities don't feel that they are able to come in, please let us know. Let's work together. If it's secondary, it will go to Dan. If it's elementary, it goes to John. And if it's security, it goes to Chris. These are the people we are here to help figure that out with you.
Krestin, I asked John if I could just add one thing. We do want our kids to connect with you in the community. And if I'm correct, I believe, Gary, I think you made some visits to Goodman Middle School last year and talked to the kids about your business and your pathway. And I know, Kurt, you've been connected.
Yeah.
And we want to not rest there. We want to expand that. So we're having conversations about how do we provide exposure to our students, to people in our community, so they can start developing their pathway. Because some of your pathways are unique to where you landed, and we want them to learn from that. But we want it to be scheduled so we know who's coming in. Yeah. Sure.
For elementary schools, prior to COVID, we had a lot of moms and dads and community members in the school on a daily basis. And that helps kind of cross that moat. Plus it gives more eyes and ears around the building, right? With COVID, that went away, and we're really trying to push that back in. We used to be room moms and watch dogs, but we're trying to make those less stereotypical, I guess. But the idea is that we want to make sure that the people we're inviting in are the right people. We have checks, but at the same time, the more we can bring that community in, not feel like school is here and that's closed off, the better off we are.
Oh, great.
This has been a very positive presentation. Having said that, you have students of different ethnicities and races. You have students, some that are fighting homelessness, I'm assuming, and probably a bunch of other differences I haven't mentioned. I'm just curious, what as you look at the school year is a big challenge that you're not as optimistic about necessarily, or that you've not beaten yet? Is there something you're wrestling with? Thank you, Daryl. That is a great question. When I was talking about grad rates, and we've been doing this for a number of years, we need to know who they are. We're at about 91%. Who are the other 9%? And why are they not getting across the line? I would share with you that some of the statistics around that, we have students who are more profoundly disabled that move on to our community transition program. I was doing the math on that, and if it's roughly 10 students a year, that's probably 1.5 to 3%. That's not a challenge. That's a success because we're able to retain them for another 3 years and continue down their path. But when we really look at it, it does fall mostly with students with disabilities. So part of our MTSS work is how do we support students so that they do hit that graduation mark, specifically students with disabilities, and oftentimes it's students of poverty as well. So if there are barriers there and we can identify who those students are, we have to strategize and get creative in terms of how we eliminate those barriers. So we're chipping away at it. No, we're not perfect. 91% isn't the goal. But who are the ones that aren't making it, and how do we break down those barriers? That's not a 9 through 12 thing. It's not a 6 through 12 thing. We're all in that to say, okay, how do we start early and let's get on top of that. So we figure out who is it in that gap and how do we close that gap?
And the follow-up question to that is how can the community help you guys with addressing whatever that challenge is?
That's exactly the great question, is how, and that's what we've got to figure out.
You want to do elementary?
I was just going to make one of the things we want to do is we want to partner with our community as much as we can to provide those supports for our underserved populations. And we have partnerships with multiple different nonprofits and other volunteer groups in our community to help with that. We had a church group that on this last Sunday went out to our schools and provided work on our grounds to help for open house. That's an example of a partnership. We have one that's more specific to what you're talking about, in that we have a partnership with Community in Schools, which is a nonprofit that provides 12 full-time coordinators in 12 of our 17 schools that are specifically around caseloads with those underserved students to help them, whether it's to get them a pair of shoes if they don't have it, or get them to a doctor if they can't get there, that extra layer of support. So that's one of the ways, is the more community partnerships that we can form, the better off we can help those students who might fall through the cracks or be underserved.
And John, so as the superintendent, I'm always looking at academic excellence and which students are not meeting standard. You've heard a lot about our literacy work. I'm also concerned about mathematics and science and where we are and what materials we have and how our students are mathematically literate. And so that is continual work. And another piece that I think all of us as grown-ups in this community can help with, the board passed policies around cell phone use during school and social media, and how harmful social media can be on our young people and how addictive it can be. I just was having a conversation about how addicted I am to my cell phone, right? And realizing that tools are tools, they shouldn't be taking over behavior. And so one thing that I'm speaking for Chris, because Chris spearheaded really the whole conversation around having time where students are not on their social media devices and having access to that. That will be a change for us. It will be a change for many schools. You'll see it's very newsworthy right now. We have been contacted about, how are you going to do this? And I always say, we're the adults in the system. And if we know what to do, we need to do that for children, on behalf of children, because we cannot allow social media or things beyond our students' ability for them to be able to, we are a school system. And so we will be having time where students do not have access to their cell phones and navigating through that. And this is really Chris's work, but we want the community to also support that. And I know that our behavior has already changed. We put our phones down, we put it away because we need to interact. But we come from a generation that we played outside, You know, we built forts, we played sports, we talked trash to each other, right? But we engaged. Many of our young people are being raised in places where this is taking the place of this. And so re-engaging that creativity, that critical thinking, that is imperative. So that would be another thing that I hope that the community knows and understands and really tries to model as well. So help us.
I think it's not going to be that quick. CTE. Where does that stand this year? Because I know that took a budget cut.
CTE is career and technical education. Back in the day, we used to call that voc ed. Yeah, I don't know that it took a budget cut because it has its own separate budget. Every student that comes in gets state funding. And if they're enrolled in CTE courses, we get additional funding for those students that are enrolled in CTE. We are really interested in building out the pathways that I listed up there from the middle school and making connections. We still continue to have a very successful junior ROTC program, which is part of CTE. We continue to have our skilled trades, which was really built out at Peninsula High School in previous years. We're going to still continue that pathway down the trades. Part of CTE is high wage, high demand. We're supposed to be focusing on high wage and high demand fields. In addition to what I put up there about flight and space and energy and environment, we already had courses in place around computer science, app creators, and computer science for innovators at the middle school level. We really need to revisit our computer science pathway at the high school level because those careers have evolved as well. So as careers evolve, we have to bring people from the community in that can share with us what the current industry standard is, because we should always be aspiring to hit that community standard. So Miriam, it's a tough one, but we have to continually evolve because the careers are not staying stagnant as well. And we'll be invested in that.
It's a great question. I'll just add to what Dan said. We have gone through some restructuring and right sizing this summer too at district office. So when it comes to CTE, that will fall under teaching and learning this year. And we have a secondary director of teaching and learning, James Cantonwine. And we have a new CTE coordinator, Stephanie Gleniski, as of 2 days ago, maybe. So we're restructuring that department and aligning our work with CTE with, we had a report and an audit done about a year ago and some recommendations in that report that we'll be working toward this year as we restructure the program and really try to meet those goals that are outlined in the audit.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Let's give them a round of applause. We'll see you all. Kurt, who do we have next week?
Oh, we have Robin Callahan, who is the president of the Gig Harbor Rotary, talking about Rotary's mission in our community. But also tied in with that is the Dolly Parton Imagination Library, which the Gig Harbor Rotary Club is a big sponsor. Dolly was in Tacoma 2 weeks ago, and she started that library 30 years ago. Once she's one of 12 children, her father could not read or write, and she and him started this Imagination Library.
Thank you. And Tina has some information about the Veterans event and the upcoming Gig Harbor Film Festival. So she'll be passing those out. We'll see you all next week.
Oh, okay.